So it's my son's 17th birthday and we are updating his PC. About 5 years ago we did a PC build video on the channel, so roughly 12 years old then. And since then we've updated components along the way, but this time we're actually going to overhaul his rig. And I've partnered with ASUS on this, so a big thank you to them for sending a lot of these components over. So with this, for the motherboard, we have the X870 plus Wi-Fi. For the CPU, I have the AMD Ryzen 7900X. We have the ROG Strix LC3 360 AIO. For the power supply unit, I have the TUF 1000 watt gold rated power supply unit there. We have the 5060 Ti GPU. From Viper Gaming, we have 64 gigs of DDR5, and then we have the TUF TR120 fans. All of this is going to go into the ASUS A31 case, which has a really cool slant here on the bottom that we're going to put some fans and just has a cool look to it. Now, I don't do a ton of in-depth testing here on the channel. I don't have the time and I really don't have the resources for all of that. I'm going to leave that to other channels that do have the means to do that. But with those other channels, I've noticed that a lot of times they may skip over or really not fully showcase some of the features because they're fixated on the tests. So with this, I want to do the opposite. I want to talk about the different features that these components have that perhaps don't get covered quite as much with other build videos. So with that being said, let's go ahead and jump now into the components and the various features that they have.
Starting with the TUF X870 Plus Wi-Fi motherboard. This is an 8-layer PCB design with the AM5 socket, and this has 4 DDR5 dual-channel slots with a ASUS enhanced memory profile, which automatically detects the memory you have installed and then optimizes the frequency, timing, and voltage profile that you can apply. For the RAM here, this can be overclocked up to 8,000 plus megahertz. This has one PCIe 5.0 slot with an awesome Q release latch, which comes in handy with these larger GPUs. So no more trying to reach around to actually unlock your card. This is so much easier, and I hope that all the motherboards over time adopt this type of feature. For storage, this has 4 M.2 slots. You're going to get 2 2280 PCIe 5.0 slots, one 2280 PCIe 4.0 slot, and one PCIe 4.0 that is compatible with 2242, 2260, 2280, and 22110. This board leans more towards M.2 storage as you only get 2 SATA plugins, so do keep that in mind when you are trying to line out what storage you're going to use with this motherboard. These all feature for the M.2s though the Q latch, so no more small screws to lose. It's just a simple click in process and then you get that quick release when you push this down. And this is going to be another one of those features that I hope all other motherboards slowly shift towards. Towards the upper right hand side of the motherboard, there's also a Q LED which lets you know which device is having an issue, so there's no more guessing here or needed to kind of comb through the user manual. It will illuminate which component is having the issue, which is awesome. On the rear panel, this comes with plenty of ports, which I really appreciate. Here you get 2 USB 4 Type-C ports running at 40 gigabytes per second, 3 USB Type-A ports running at 10 gigabytes per second, 4 USB Type-A's running at 5 gigabytes per second. You get 5 audio jacks and a BIOS flashback button, which is another great feature that I hope other motherboards adopt, along with the Wi-Fi Q antenna connection, which ditches the screw-in cables for ones that just snap into place. This has Wi-Fi 7 and Bluetooth 5.4, and then you also have an Ethernet port and an HDMI port on the back of the board here. Now this does come with some AI features, which has become more of a buzzword, but looking at what this does offer for beginners like my son, this is going to be really, really great for helping him optimize his PC without needing to know the ins and outs of how that works, because he's just not going to spend the time right now to mess around with that. Now, the ROG build I did a couple months ago has the ROG X870 Plus, and so it has these same features, and I really like this. I know how to do the overclocking. I would much rather let the AI do it for right now, because it's not something where I'm really trying to push my hardware as hard as possible. It's one of those things that I tinker around with here or there, but the extra performance that I get out of that, to me, it's just not worth the time that I would spend trying to optimize it, where this will allow me to do that to a certain degree with a click of a button. So here we have the AI overclocking, maximize CPU performance and predictions for ideal CPU and cooling settings, pushing your system to its limits. We have the AI cooling 2, optimize thermals and reduce noise via dynamic adjustments of fan speeds based on CPU temperatures. And this one, by the way, is the one that my son noticed the most. So as he's been playing games, he's like, it's so cool that it actually just revs up the fans when I'm gaming, then when it doesn't need it, it just actually turns those back down. And then you have the AI networking 2, which is going to optimize network performance. You also have the AI advisor. So this is going to help, especially for beginners like my son. It says right here, it can provide easy to understand explanations of one-click optimization features like AI overclocking and AI cooling 2. And then for seasoned PC building veterans, it can offer guidance and instructions on the latest features offered by ASUS. Now, I'm not going to do a deep dive into the BIOS here, but some cool features I do want to highlight. One, you can enable an HD version of the BIOS, so it won't be as grainy. Now, my camera doesn't do quite as good of a job here. It looks a little bit softer grainy because of my camera. In person, very crystal clear. I like that feature. And then we have the Q dashboard here. This is a layout of your full motherboard and all of the components. So here, if you were having an issue with one, you could find out which one you're having an issue with, because right now it shows green. Everything is good to go. If it wasn't green, you would not see that. And so with this, it presents a very easy way to understand your motherboard and any potential issues you may be having. Outside of that, I want to highlight all of the features for the AI tweaker. So at the top there, you have my favorites: main, AI tweaker, advanced, monitor, boot, tool, exit, and this is going to be in the advanced mode. You do have an easy mode, but with this, a lot of this you can just set to auto, or you can make adjustments to it. This is a massive buffet of adjustments that you get to play with. There's a lot here. I would need to spend a large amount of time going through all of this, but I like the fact that for those people that want a lot of adjustments, they want a lot of control when it comes to just tweaking the performance with their components, this still offers that. Yeah, you could run it with the AI, which is very helpful for my son, but if you didn't want to do that, if you wanted to get in here and make all these adjustments also, you can do that. They are giving you a lot of room to play, to make adjustments with the components on this board. I really appreciate that. So they've done a really good job with the BIOS layout here and the options they're giving you to play around with within this. Next, we have the ROG Strix LC3 AIO water cooler. This is the non-RGB fan version. There's also a version out there that has an LCD screen where you can put different videos, or you can showcase metrics on that screen if you want to. So you do have some options there. Cool things with this does have the new water block with 360-degree rotating ROG logo. So if it was the screen version or this version, you can actually rotate that and get it in the exact orientation that you want it to be. I like when AIOs have this, because nothing is worse than trying to essentially fit its orientation to your build, and that doesn't always work out. And then with this, you're going to have 10 plus custom aura lighting effects with this. This has the new Asetek cold plate with Gen 7 V2 pump, armed with a robust motor that delivers ultimate cooling performance. We have the premium ROG fans with high airflow, optimized acoustics, and 0 decibel technology, which the fans go to when in low load mode. And what this means is they will actually just stop if there's not a lot of load on the CPU where they need to try to bring the temperature down. The fans can operate at up to 2200 RPM. This has 3.92 millimeters of H2O air pressure. 70.38 CFM airflow, and these have anti-vibration rubber on the corners. ROG has reinforced the sleeve tubing, which now offers increased durability, which is great because nothing is worse than having one of these eventually crack and leak. If there are any problems though, this comes with a 6-year warranty, which is awesome. In terms of compatibility, this is going to fit with Intel's LGA 1851, 1700, 1200, and 115X, along with AMD's AM4 and AM5. Next is the Prime RTX 5060 Ti OC, which is the 16GB version, and definitely the one I would choose over the 8GB version. Now, I know there's been a lot of shade thrown around by tech reviewers who do in-depth testing when it comes to the 5000 series cards, especially the 5060s, and I do think a lot of that can be warranted because the performance hasn't been great to past cards. So when you're looking at the cost to performance differences, I know it's not the leap that everybody was hoping for. With that being said though, ASUS has to work within the confines of what NVIDIA gives them, just like all the other brands have to. And the landscape right now isn't the best when you're trying to buy a GPU. High-end cards like the 5090 are hard to find at retail price, as scalpers have bought them all up and they've raised the price and it's just sky high right now. Older 4000 series cards aren't being made anymore, so they can be hard to find, or you're just going to see the increase in price with that. So the market's kind of boxed in right now. So for people wanting to get a new card, the options here are more limited, but cards like the 5060 Ti are readily available, and for a new entry point into gaming, this thing offers solid performance because you can actually get one. Looking at the features here, the Prime 5060 Ti is a small form factor ready card. It is a 2.5 slot design with 3 fans that have dual ball fan bearings for increased lifespan. This has a dual BIOS switch that allows you to toggle this between performance and quiet modes. This only needs one 8-pin power connector, and for dimensions, this is 304 by 120 by 50 millimeters. 4 ports, this has one HDMI 2.1 and then 3 DP 2.1s. For technical specs, this is 16 gigabytes of GDDR7 with a 128-bit bus, providing memory bandwidth of up to 448 gigabytes per second. This has an engine clock of 2617 megahertz boost clock and 2647 in overclock mode. This is a Blackwell architecture GPU with 4608 CUDA cores, and the teraflops here is 23.7. And with these 5000 series cards, we do have the AI performance as well, and this has 772 TOPS. And last here, this is OpenGL 4.6. This does have PCIe 5.0, and you get a 3-year warranty with the card. Next, we have the TUF 1000 watt power supply unit. The main highlights here are the dual ball fan bearing, which ASUS says can last up to twice as long as sleeve bearing designs. This is 80 plus gold certified, and they've upgraded their PCIe connectors to have higher performance copper pins, which ASUS says can lower the temps up to 12 degrees. This is ATX 3.0 compatible for the larger GPUs, and this has etched cables, which are way more flexible and easier to route for cable management. The cables here are UL 1581 flame tested certified and UL 758 certified. You also get a 10-year warranty with this power supply unit, which is amazing and gives you a good peace of mind when buying this. And last, we have the ASUS A31 case, which features a panoramic tempered glass design to show off your build. This has an 8-degree angled base, which looks really cool with the fans installed, and it helps with airflow. And then this is set up for motherboards with the hidden connectors where they plug into the back of the motherboard and not the front. And with these motherboards, this is going to fit the ATX, Micro ATX, ITX, and then the BTF, which the BTF board is the one I was just talking about, where the connectors are hidden and you plug everything on the back of the board for the power cables, which is really nice because it just makes everything look more seamless. Now, we don't have one of those boards for this build, but I hope in the near future we can actually get our hands on one, because I want to test one of those out and then just see how seamless it looks once you're finished with the build. For compatibility here, you can mount up to a 360mm radiator on the top, and although they don't specify this in the specs section, I think you could fit up to a 240mm radiator on the side panel. I doubt a 280 is going to fit there because they don't have the wider opening for those type of fans, and we did check for our AIO water cooler and the radiator that we have for this build, which is 360mm, and it will not fit there. Again, they don't specify this. You potentially could fit that, but really this is built to have the radiator on the top here, and it can fit up to 360mm radiators, which is nice, so you're covered. In terms of max CPU cooler, this can fit up to 165mm. Max GPU length is 380mm, and max power supply is going to be 200mm. Now, on the bottom where you would mount your power supply unit, this does have a removable tray for your hard drives. This will hold 2 HDDs or 2 SSDs. For the back, you have the 34mm space for managing your cables, and this was really easy to work within. I like the overall design, all the different areas that you can route this. It made it very simple and easy to do, and you do have some pre-installed Velcro ties. On the front I/O, you have one headphone / mic combo jack, 2 USB 3.2 Gen 1 ports, and 1 USB 3.2 Gen 2 Type-C port. This is the first case that I've used where the Type-C connector for the front I/O also works for the other ports. Usually I have 2 different cables that I'm working with for that. This one is all in one, which made this so much easier to work within. Less cables to deal with here is definitely a plus. So now let's get into the actual build process here. I tried to make sure that my son did about 90+% of this build with me just instructing him. There's a couple spots where I had to hop in and help out, but I really like when we get to do this because it's one of the few occasions where he will let me teach him something that I know. Now, we've done that previous build, we've upgraded things over time. I've always tried to make sure that he is involved in that process. This one he's done the most in regards to this full build process, and I'm hoping that he retains a lot of this as he gets older so he can continue to build his own PCs and upgrade his components without needing to buy pre-built PCs or take this down to some type of shop where they can do it for him. Now, I'm not going to talk for the entirety of this portion. I did try to edit this such that it is the correct sequence that we built this in. I'm going to hop back in on certain portions where I do want to talk about a particular aspect of the components, or maybe we did a particular thing and I want to just talk about why we did it that way. So we did go ahead and run the CPU power cable before we put in the power supply unit. We made sure to check all the cables and what we would need. We set the power supply unit up before we slid it in. I used to do that backwards. That is definitely a rookie mistake in doing that. They're obviously very hard to plug in if you have the power supply unit installed and you're trying to then run those cables. But I will say, and I mentioned this earlier, the flexibility of these cables is awesome. The ROG power supply unit that I got for my build is the same in terms of the material with these cables. They are very flexible, very bendy, which just makes running them so much easier, especially compared to like the thicker, like rubber-ish type ones that you have. Those sleeves just are harder, and when you're dealing with the plug-in for the motherboard especially, that can be a little bit trickier with those. This just easily moves out of the way. I would like to see this though with those BTF motherboards where it's even simpler because you're just plugging everything from the back, and I think with that you probably would need cables that are much more flexible, because if they're not, it's going to poke out, and if you don't have enough room in the back space there for those cables, it may not actually close for that back panel. So here you have the cage for your hard drives, whether that's the HDD or SSD. With that, you can fit two. It does attach in terms of how you're going to secure it from the bottom with that. So you have screws, keep that in mind. And then the dust screens that you have both on the top and the bottom are magnetic. And the thing I was curious about is once you put that screw, and we're looking at the radiator, this would apply to this as well, is it going to protrude out a bunch because you now have these screws there and it's not flush and it's not really noticeable at all. The thing with those magnetic screens, if you put your hand on top, like let's say you're trying to move this, that thing is going to pop off. So be mindful of that. We've kind of had to learn to work around that because there was a couple times where we're trying to move this and it's essentially just shifting off or popping off, and we're not mindful of that. So it's frustrating in the moment. It's awesome you can just easily remove them and clean them as you want, but you have to learn how to work with it because initially it can be frustrating. So here we're installing the fans on that 8-degree angled bottom portion. Initially, I was like, where are the screws for this? And I was thinking it didn't come with it, but if you look in the bag that comes with the case itself, they do give you the longer screws to make sure that you can attach your fans to this. So you don't need to buy extra screws in order to do that. Now with these TUF T120 fans, one thing I noticed that the orientation in regards to how we ran the cables, you have one side that just has the single white line that is going to have color on it, and then you have another side that has two. So if you notice, ours goes 1 2 2. That's something that we noticed later, so pay attention to that. But I like the fact with these that you have your regular ones and then you do have reverse blade. So on the bottom we have the reverse blade, so it will be drawing air up. On the side here we just have the regular one, so it's going to push the air out. I will showcase the airflow on this towards the end with the little fog machine that I got for this. Now one thing to note here is you are seeing us use a drill to install these, because when you first do an install with the screws on a new fan, you have to thread it, and that is just a pain. So I just put the drill on the lowest setting. That way I thread it with this the first time, and then I'll never need to use it again. Now some quick specs on the fans here. This has 2.5 millimeters of H2O static pressure, 29 decibels for the noise level, 76 CFM for the max airflow. This has an advanced fluid dynamic bearing that is rated for up to 250,000 hours, which is awesome. And for the RPMs here, this can go from 250 all the way up to 1900. You can daisy chain these together, both in terms of the power plug-in and also the RGB plug-in as well. And now we have our moment of truth, the scariest part of doing any build. Will this actually power on? And it did. After this, we just had to make sure that everything was good in terms of checking it within the BIOS. We do only have the one M.2, which has his operating system initially plugged in, and then after we set the boot priority, then we installed the other 2 SSDs, then we could actually close this thing up. I do want to showcase really quick the cable management. I'm not good at this at all, so this, I understand, does not look visually great, but in terms of space with this has plenty of space. It also has a bunch of areas where you could run the cables, you can zip tie them down. It does offer you a lot here if you want to spend the time to make it look very pretty. So after this was all set up, he actually got to use the new monitor as well. So I'm going to cover the specs here. This is going to be the ROG XG27WCS. This is a 27-inch 1440p VA panel monitor. This is 180 hertz. This has a 1 millisecond gray-to-gray response time, which is very rare for VA panels. This has a 1500R curve. You have the option for HDR 400, and then this covers 125% of the sRGB color space and 95% of the DCI-P3 color space. Now this monitor offers a lot more than just that, but I can't really cover that in this video, and there's a lot of testing that I'm not going to do because this isn't a full review, but I will have a link for that in the description if you want to look at what else this has to offer. In terms of just playing with this, my son has had a blast. This thing is such a huge upgrade for him, and he's got a massive increase in his overall performance when he's playing games like Destiny 2. Now I just got a handheld fog machine, so I wanted to put it to good use with this because I can show the draw of the bottom fans here, and we can see how this ventilates. So the fans are drawing in from the bottom, and then they are kicking out the back, the top, and the rear here. I did talk about that earlier, but this is just a showcase of how that would actually look, because now I'm pumping that fog or that smoke in there, and you can actually see it in real time. These fans are awesome. Not only from the visual side, because they can all sync together and there's a ton of cool lighting effects, but also just from a performance side, especially when paired with the AI cooling, which I mentioned earlier will dynamically adjust the fan speeds to make sure the CPU temperature is optimal. And I really like the 8-degree angle on the bottom of the case, so you do get to see your fans a little bit better. It's just a really cool visual. So that's going to wrap this video up. I know it was a longer video, but for anybody that's watched my channel, that's not a surprise at this point. Hopefully I was able to cover a lot of stuff outside of performance that maybe you haven't been able to find on other channels. And if you have any questions about any of these components that maybe I didn't answer here, let me know in the comment section and I will make sure to answer that for you there. I'll have links for all of these components in the description if you want to pick any of them up. And I want to thank ASUS again for partnering with me on this video and giving my son such an amazing birthday build. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.